Will the Red Sox pull the trigger on a trade that could shake the entire league? And is Carlos Narvaez about to become the most underrated weapon in Boston's championship arsenal? Stick around, because what's brewing at Fenway right now might just redefine this entire franchise for the next decade. Quick favor, if you're loving this content, hit that subscribe button. Over 92% of viewers haven't yet. It's free, takes a second, and means the world to us. Thanks if you did. Now back to the show. The Boston Red Sox are standing at a crossroads, folks, and the decisions made in the next few weeks could determine whether this team hoists a championship trophy or watches October baseball from their couches. We're talking about a franchise that's done sitting on the sidelines, a front office that's finally ready to make noise, and a roster that's screaming we're ready to win now. But here's where it gets interesting. While everyone's been obsessing over free agent signings and blockbuster acquisitions, two stories have been quietly unfolding behind the scenes at Fenway Park, stories that might actually tell us more about where this team is heading than any splashy headline ever could. First up, Carlos Narvaez. Remember that name, because if you've been sleeping on this guy, you're about to get a wake-up call louder than a Green Monster home run on opening day. This isn't just another backup catcher trying to crack the roster. This is a player who's walked into spring training with the kind of quiet confidence that separates pretenders from contenders. No drama, no ego, just pure I'm here to work mentality. And in a clubhouse that's been searching for identity, that attitude might be worth more than any batting average. But wait, there's more. Because while Narvaez is busy proving he belongs behind the plate, the Red Sox front office is reportedly entertaining trade conversations that could send shockwaves through baseball. We're talking about Brayan Bello, the young right-hander who's supposed to be untouchable, the guy who's been labeled a cornerstone of this rotation. Yeah, that Brayan Bello. And before you start screaming at your screen, hear this out, because what looks like chaos on the surface might actually be calculated brilliance. Picture this. The Red Sox brass sitting in their war room, phones buzzing with offers from teams desperate for pitching. On one side, you've got Bello, a talented arm with ace potential but also question marks about consistency. On the other side, you've got a farm system stacked with prospects and a front office that's finally figured out that hoarding potential doesn't win championships. Executing bold moves does. So what do? They listen. They evaluate. They consider the unthinkable. And that's exactly what separates teams that rebuild forever from teams that actually win. Now, let's talk about what's really happening here. The Red Sox aren't just throwing darts at a board hoping something sticks. This is strategic chess, not checkers. By even considering a Bello trade, they're sending a message to the entire organization. Nobody's untouchable if the right deal comes along. That's the mindset of a team that's serious about winning, not just participating. It's like they're saying we love our young talent, but we love championship rings more. And here's the kicker. While other teams are paralyzed by fear of making the wrong move, Boston's front office is operating from a position of strength. They've got depth in the rotation. They've got prospects teams are drooling over. They've got flexibility that most franchises would kill for. So when rumors start swirling about Bello being available, it's not desperation, it's leverage. It's the Red Sox telling the baseball world we've got options, and we're not afraid to use them. But let's pump the brakes for a second and talk about Carlos Narvaez, because while the Bello speculation is grabbing headlines, what Narvaez is doing might be even more important for this team's immediate future. This guy didn't just show up to camp hoping to make the roster. He showed up like he already belongs, working with pitchers, studying game film, doing all the unglamorous stuff that separates good catchers from great ones. And in a sport where leadership behind the plate can make or break a pitching staff, that matters more than most fans realize. Imagine this. You're a young pitcher trying to navigate the pressure cooker of Fenway Park, the Green Monster looming behind you, fans who know baseball better than most coaches, and expectations that would crush lesser players. Now imagine having a catcher who's not just calling pitches but actually invested in your success, someone who's treating every bullpen session like it's Game 7 of the World Series. That's what Narvaez is bringing to this team, and it's the kind of intangible that doesn't show up in box scores but absolutely shows up in October. The beauty of Narvaez's approach is that it's contagious. When you've got a guy who's grinding every single day, who's first to arrive and last to leave, who's treating a backup catcher role like it's the most important job in baseball, that sets a tone. Suddenly, other players start asking themselves, am I matching that intensity? Am I bringing that level of commitment? And before you know it, you've got an entire clubhouse raising its standards. That's how championship cultures get built, folks. Not through speeches or slogans, but through daily examples of what professionalism looks like. But here's where these two stories collide in the most fascinating way. The Red Sox are simultaneously betting on character guys like Narvaez while also being willing to move talented but potentially expendable pieces like Bello. See the pattern? They're building a team, not collecting talent. There's a massive difference. Talent wins games, sure, but teams win championships. And right now, Boston's front office seems to finally understand that distinction. Now, let's dive into the Bello situation because this is where things get really spicy. Word around the league is that multiple teams have inquired about the right-hander's availability, and the Red Sox haven't exactly slammed the door shut. That's significant, folks. In years past, Boston would have responded with an immediate no comment or released some generic statement about building around young players. But this time, radio silence mixed with just enough intrigue to keep teams calling. That's not accidental. That's strategic ambiguity, and it's a beautiful thing when executed correctly. Think about what a Bello trade could bring back. We're not talking about spare parts or salary dumps. We're talking about major league-ready talent that could contribute immediately, prospects who could accelerate the timeline, or that one missing piece that turns a playoff team into a World Series contender. The Red Sox have needs, sure, but they also have leverage. Teams desperate for pitching will overpay, especially for a young arm with years of control remaining. And if Boston plays this right, they could turn one pitcher into multiple impact players. But here's the risk, and we need to address this head-on. What if Bello becomes a legitimate ace somewhere else? What if the Red Sox trade him and he goes on to dominate for the next decade while Boston's return package flames out? That's the nightmare scenario that keeps front offices up at night. It's the trade that gets executives fired and fans screaming for years. But you know what's even worse? Being so afraid of making a mistake that you never make any move at all. That's how you end up stuck in mediocrity, watching other teams celebrate while you're left wondering what if. The Red Sox seem to have learned that lesson the hard way. Years of watching prospects develop slowly, years of being almost good enough, years of finishing third or fourth in the division while promising that next year will be different. Yeah, that playbook's been thrown out. Now they're operating like a team that understands windows don't stay open forever. They've got Rafael Devers in his prime. They've got young talent emerging. They've got a fan base that's hungry for October baseball. The time to strike is now, not 3 years from now when half the core is gone and the window's slammed shut. And that brings us back to Narvaez because while the front office is wheeling and dealing upstairs, this guy's down on the field making sure the foundation stays solid. He's not worried about trade rumors or roster speculation. He's focused on doing his job at the highest level possible, and that kind of focus is exactly what this team needs during uncertain times. When everything else is swirling around you, having guys who just put their heads down and work becomes invaluable. Here's what makes this whole situation so fascinating. The Red Sox are essentially saying, we're confident enough in our depth and our direction to consider anything. That's a powerful position to negotiate from. It's like playing poker when everyone knows you've got a strong hand. You can bluff, you can wait, you can strike when the moment's right, because you're not operating from desperation. You're operating from strength. Now, imagine this scenario. The Red Sox trade Bello for a package that includes a power bat and a couple of high-ceiling prospects. Suddenly, the lineup gets deeper, the farm system stays stocked, and the rotation? Well, they've still got enough arms to compete, especially if Narvaez is helping those pitchers maximize their potential. That's the dream scenario, the move that has fans looking back 5 years from now and saying, that's when everything changed. That's when the Red Sox went from pretenders to contenders. But even if the Bello trade doesn't happen, even if Boston decides to hold onto their young pitcher, the fact that they're willing to listen tells us everything we need to know about their mindset. This isn't a front office that's content with moral victories or waiting for prospects to develop. This is a group that's ready to be aggressive, ready to make bold calls, ready to put this franchise back where it belongs, in championship contention. And while all this high-stakes drama unfolds in the front office, Narvaez just keeps grinding. He's not making headlines with flashy plays or controversial statements. He's making an impact the old-fashioned way, through preparation, through leadership, through being the kind of teammate that everyone respects. In a sport that's increasingly dominated by analytics and highlight reels, there's something refreshing about a player who just shows up and does the work. The reality is this. The 2026 Red Sox are being built on two foundations: smart, aggressive management willing to make tough decisions, and character players who set the tone in the clubhouse. Bello represents the former, a talented piece that could be moved if it accelerates the timeline. Narvaez represents the latter, the glue guy who makes everyone around him better. And somehow, someway, Boston's front office is balancing both approaches without losing sight of the ultimate goal: winning championships. As we head deeper into the off-season, expect the rumors to intensify. Expect more teams to call about Bello. Expect the Red Sox to keep playing their cards close to the vest. And expect Narvaez to keep doing what he's been doing, preparing like a starter, leading like a veteran, and proving that sometimes the best moves are the ones that don't make headlines. So here's the bottom line, folks. The Red Sox are standing at a crossroads between calculated risk and comfortable mediocrity. They can play it safe, hold onto their young talent, and hope everything develops perfectly. Or they can be bold, make the tough calls, and seize the moment while the window's open. And based on everything we're seeing, from the Bello trade talks to the Narvaez commitment, it looks like Boston's choosing boldness. Stay tuned, Red Sox Nation, because if there's one thing we know for sure, it's that this front office isn't done making moves. Whether it's Bello getting traded or staying put, whether it's Narvaez becoming the starting catcher or continuing to push for that role, the next few months will define this franchise's direction for years to come. And honestly, that's exactly where championship teams want to be, in the middle of the action, making things happen, refusing to settle. Welcome to the new era of Red Sox baseball, where playing it safe is no longer an option.